right? They control the balance sheet and profit statement of every firm. No one knows that.
One of the things that China was extremely strict on us about was if you're going to have access to this market and you're going to have access to market and promote this movie far beyond most movies, you need to shoot the movie here.
But the takedown really is on the economic side, like Reagan did it to USSR. We do have an option. Take away Chinese banks' ability to settle their transactions worldwide in U.S. dollar.
Chinese Communist Party, ruling for 27 years before his death in 1976. An estimated 65 million Chinese people died as a result of his policies and attempts to craft Chinese socialism, the most famous of which was the Great Famine, the consequence of his order to centralize China's agriculture under a policy called the Great Leap Forward. Current party leader Xi Jinping is seen as a staunch follower of Mao, given his dedication to Mao's ideology, his often hardline policies, and his stress on the Communist Party's absolute leadership over all aspects of society. Apart from his comments on Maoism, Macron also cited other communist leaders on various occasions. During a later interview with French TV station RTL, Macron invoked a famous quote from former Chinese statesman Deng Xiaoping as he addressed the issue of overcoming the left-right divide. It doesn't matter if a cat is white or black. We only ask him to catch the mouse. Earlier that same year, at a conference in Western France, Macron made repeated calls for what he called cultural revolution in multiple sectors. The term evokes one of the darkest periods of communist rule in China, when millennia of cultural heritage were wiped out, with hundreds of thousands of lives slaughtered. Macron also likened his campaign and polling analysis to a long march. The name relates to the communist forces' south-to-north migration during the Civil War to escape the then-ruling Kuomintang. Mao's ideas had a profound impact on French society back in the 60s. One of Macron's rivals in that year's election, politician Jean-Luc Mélenchon, is also a typical Maoist. He was known for wearing Mao's jacket during campaign events. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
And now is finally brought to a just end.
She also said a conflict between Beijing and Taiwan would not be ideal since 50% of economic deliveries pass through the Taiwan Strait. She said it would disrupt the German economy. She also mentioned that some of Germany's dependencies on China are unhealthy and compared them to lessons Europe has learned in its dependencies on Russia. Baerbock also visited a German company in China and toured a German language school there. Part of the expected purpose of her trip is damage control after the French president made seemingly anti-Taiwan comments. His remarks appear to be at odds with the European Union. Baerbock has been more wary on relations with China than the German chancellor and is drafting a China policy aimed at reducing German dependence on trade with Beijing.
Judging from the public information, it will include missions related to aviation and space, meaning it could be related to anything, to satellites and communication. Whether it is really about those, I believe all departments are making investigations.
The Japanese news agency said the no-fly zone also included part of Japan's exclusive economic zone. Hours later, the island said it had successfully urged China to drastically narrow its plan, shortening the no-fly zone's time frame to about half an hour on Sunday morning. That's down from the originally scheduled 3 days. The change will help avoid severe travel distributions, as happened during Chinese military drills last August. Former UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has some stern words about French President Emmanuel Macron's recent visit to China. Truss says looking to communist leader Xi Jinping for solution to the conflict in Ukraine is a mistake and a sign of weakness. And she criticized Macron for his lackluster stance on Taiwan. And
why? He's a communist.
More on the former prime minister's comments.
The West. Right now, the CCP is under fire from all fronts. So at this moment, the CCP does need Russia a lot. Of course, on the other hand, Russia also needs the CCP for its support from many fronts, that so it can have the ability to persist, you can say, to drag on, and hopefully, even if it's going to lose, not to lose to shamefully or badly.
All right, and now Gregory, many people call you King. So, King, Hong Kong was supposed to be one country, two systems. Now that didn't work. What's in store for Taiwan?
Well, Hong Kong has just showcased that the one country, two system is a broken promise. So basically anything that you see by the CCP nowadays, they're trying to say that, okay, the one country system works well, but when you see President Trump has already putting a full stop to the one country, two system, my fellow countrymen in Hong Kong and also my friends in Taiwan, they all understand. It's just a joke.
And one of the former presidents of Taiwan recently went to Beijing and said that we're all Chinese. What do you think about that, King? Did he cross a line? Did he betray his country there?
Well, I would say it's just a political stunt. Well, in Hong Kong or in Taiwan nowadays, a death of a puppy or a monkey or a chimpanzee loose from the zoo has more TV rating in some time visit China. So you can see the people's interest has just shifted. President Ma, he might want to have a historical footnote for his visit. But the thing is, even himself dare not to shout out the Republic of China or his own formal title, the President of Taiwan. When I compare the evening news in Hong Kong and Taiwan and the Chinese TV, you cannot hear any word that on the TV, Taiwan's president, and they even less Mr. Ma. They just Ma Ying-jeou visit China. So it's so ironic that a former Taiwan president tried to finish his historical legacy, but on the other side, the China side just would not recognize.
I see. Now, turning to Taiwan's current president, Jennifer, Tsai Ing-wen has
into these matters. This is not the end of that story. They have now established a global network that includes police stations but is not limited to that effort. And so if your audience is in middle America or in a big city, the sad reality is that they are very likely within close proximity to these type of operations. And that's exactly what the Chinese Communist Party is trying to accomplish. They're trying to threaten us and keep their overseas members under close watch. So I think that it's time for us all to recognize this threat, not to be afraid of being called names which really do not hold up under scrutiny, and we need to do something collectively before it's too late.
Does the name Red Dawn ring a bell?
There's been more of an awareness in the public on, say, the China threat. There's a lot of focus on TikTok and all these areas. Many polls and surveys will say most people see China as the biggest threat, not Russia. But given all of that, what has the response been to your own work specifically?
From the beginning, we've had some interest going back to
Republican lawmakers and set a strict deadline to get it done. President Trump's campaign accuses Governor Ron DeSantis of taxpayer-funded globetrotting. Is there merit to these accusations? We'll take a closer look. This case is set to begin on October 2nd. In other legal news, a huge allegation against one of the biggest banks in the world. In a new court filing today, the Attorney General for the U.S. Virgin Islands accuses J.P. Morgan Chase of knowing about the abuse allegations against Jeffrey Epstein. The filing says bank officials were aware of the sexual abuse and trafficking claims against Epstein several years before the bank cut ties with their then client. The court document also alleges the bank was aware of potentially suspicious cash withdrawals made by Epstein. The Attorney General is accusing J.P. Morgan of obstructing federal law enforcement and prosecuting agencies that pursued Epstein. Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting prostitution with a minor in Florida back in 2008, but he remained a client of J.P. Morgan until 2013. The complaint is a new addition to a lawsuit brought against J.P. Morgan back in December. The financial institution has declined to comment about the newly filed complaint, but attorneys for them have denied the allegations in the lawsuit. The person who leaked a number of classified Pentagon documents is a young man in his 20s who shared them in a group chat. That's according to a new report. Here are the details.
Washington Post reports it found out where the leaked classified U.S. documents were initially posted. According to the outlet, a young man working on a military base shared them in a Discord server. Discord is similar to a big group chat mostly used by young video gamers. The young man, going by OG in the Discord server, reportedly had top-secret clearance on the base he worked. It's not clear which base this was. The Post says it interviewed another young man under the age of 18 who was part of that Discord server. The young member reportedly told the Post he was impressed by OG's ability to predict big events before they made the news, things only someone with this kind of high clearance would know, and that he's fit, he's strong, he's armed, he's trained. Just about everything you can expect out of some sort of crazy movie. The member allegedly knows OG's real name and the state he lives in. An FBI manhunt is currently underway for the person who leaked the documents. The Pentagon, meanwhile, is reportedly reviewing the leaked documents, saying an interrogancy effort has been stood up, focused on assessing the impact these photographed documents could have on the U.S., national security, and on our allies and partners. The young member says he expects investigators to interrogate him any day. So-called OG is allegedly skeptic of the U.S. government, saying intelligence agencies suppress its citizens. He also complained about government overreach. The leaked documents in question contained information about the Russia-Ukraine war, information about the U.S. spying on its allies, and more. Information was very detailed, including where armies have military personnel and weapons stationed. More classified information about the Russia-Ukraine war reportedly surfaced online Thursday morning.
The documents have operated in Ukraine. The UK's Ministry of Defence warned against taking the allegations at face value. Media outlets, including the BBC and The Guardian, reported that a document dated March 23rd indicates 50 UK Special Forces personnel have been deployed in the country. But the document reportedly doesn't state whether the allegedly deployed forces are located or what they are doing. The Kremlin said yesterday that it was unclear whether the allegations were true. President Biden has also commented on the leak. Here's a look.
Mr. President, could you give an update on that leak investigation, the leaked documents?
I can't right now. There's a full-blown investigation going on, as you know, with the intelligence community and the Justice Department, and we're getting close. I don't have an answer. How concerned are you about this leak?
Are you concerned about the leak? Okay, guys, it's time to go. Let's go. Oh, we gotta move.
I'm not concerned about the leak because I'm concerned that it happened. But there's nothing contemporaneous that I'm aware of that is pretty constant.
In 2018, it eased some requirements on banks with less than $250 billion. Namely, it meant those banks would no longer have to go through an annual stress test by the Federal Reserve. The previous requirement applied to all banks with over $50 billion. Travis Hill with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation disputes that this bill had anything to do with the recent bank failures. Instead, he says it's a result of not handling interest rates properly. He says he hopes people can first look at the facts and then arrive at conclusions rather than starting with the conclusion you hope to be true and grasping around for facts and support. He also urges policymakers to, quote, propose policy changes based on where we find evidence holes in our framework, rather than just trying to undo policies of the past. The IRS says nearly 1.5 million Americans have unclaimed tax refunds for 2019. The statement says they face a looming deadline to claim a total of $1.5 billion before it becomes government property. The IRS commissioner says many people may have overlooked or forgotten about these refunds. There's a 3-year window for taxpayers to file returns and claim refunds. If they don't file within 3 years, any money they could have received becomes property of the U.S. Treasury. Normally, the deadline for filing older tax returns falls around the April tax deadline, but for 2019 returns, that window has been extended to July 17th. The average unclaimed amount for 2019 is just under $900 per filer. The Florida...
If y'all can't recognize the pattern that is going on here, there's something very wrong with you. Everyone's wanting China to end the Ukraine war. France, Germany, Who else is gonna jump on that bandwagon? And there's other things going on. All kinds of other things. Korea's acting up. Taiwan. All that stuff. It's all tied in together.
Emerging threat to the United States. ABC Chicago reported on the drug's scary flesh-eating effect,
leaving some with horrific, hard-to-heal wounds that can lead to amputation.
The black dots, that's necrotic flesh. This actually looks phenomenal.
Just like fentanyl, xylazine is not illegal since it's used medically.
You don't have to completely outlaw the drug or make it illegal, but you can definitely put certain wording in there in the law to where how it's used.
Victor Avila is the author of the book Agent Under Fire. On Tuesday, the White House announced how it plans to crack down on the global fentanyl supply chain. One of the main methods is to restrict drug traffickers' access to the U.S. financial system. The fact sheet also states that the U.S. will improve tracking of pill presses, increase seizures of cash being smuggled at the southwest border, and better track equipment used to produce illicit fentanyl. What do you think about the fact sheet provided by the White House, and what stands out to you the most?
Well, I reviewed it, and the first thing that stands out is the lack of accountability that the administration is holding on Mexico and China. We know that the cartels are headquartered in Mexico, but they're present everywhere in the United States. And so we need to attack these cartels at the source.
He says the U.S. can hold Mexico accountable by placing sanctions on the country. Avila added the government should declare cartels terrorist organizations so it can freeze their assets in the U.S. and drastically ramp
GOP response to President Biden's address to a joint session of Congress in 2021. And over in Tennessee, the drama over the expulsion of 2 Democratic legislators is coming to a close.
If y'all can't recognize the pattern that is going on here, there's something very wrong with you. Everyone's wanting China to end the Ukraine war. France, Germany. Who else is gonna jump on that bandwagon? And there's other things going on. All kinds of other things. Korea's acting up. Taiwan. All that stuff. It's all tied in together.